Have you ever stopped to think that the story of every living thing, from a tiny little bacterium all the way to you and me, is written in a secret language that connects us all? Well, today, we're going to decode that story, starting right at the very beginning.
So let me just ask you, what are you really made of? And I mean, let's go deeper than just flesh and bone. What are you fundamentally?
Because the truth is, you aren't one single thing at all. You're more like a bustling city, made up of trillions of tiny, living apartments. And we've known about them for a while now. Way back in 1665, a scientist named Robert Hooke was looking at a thin slice of cork under a microscope, and he saw all these little boxes. They reminded him of the small rooms, or cella, that monks lived in, so he called them cells.
And that one simple observation, that one name gave us the single most important idea in all of biology. The cell. It's the basic building block for every single living organism on this planet. From a single-celled amoeba to a blue whale, and yes, to you.
This concept is so critical, it's basically enshrined in what we call cell theory, and it really just boils down to three simple but pretty profound rules. 1, all living things are made of cells. Easy enough. 2, the cell is the most basic unit of life. Got it. And 3, and this is the real kicker, every single cell has to come from another cell that already existed. Life only comes from life.
Okay, so we're a giant community of cells, but what's actually going on inside each one? I mean, it's not just an empty box, right? Oh no. Each cell is like a microscopic, high-tech factory that's running around the clock.
You can think of it like this. The nucleus, that's the head office, where all the master plans are kept safe. The endoplasmic reticulum is the main production line, building all the parts. Then you've got the Golgi apparatus. That's the shipping department, packing everything up and sending it out. The ribosomes are the tireless workers on the assembly line, putting everything together. And the mitochondria? Well, they're the power plants, generating all the energy to keep this whole incredible operation running. So let's zoom in on that head office for a second. What exactly are these master plans that control everything the factory does? How does a cell just know what to build or when to build it?
The answer lies in one of the most famous molecules in the world, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. This is the master blueprint. It contains every single instruction for building and running you, all tightly coiled up and packed away inside the nucleus of almost every cell in your body. It's wild.
So how does the factory actually use this blueprint? Well, it follows a process with a very grand name, the central dogma. See, the master DNA blueprint is too valuable to leave the head office. So instead, when a specific job needs to get done, the cell makes a temporary photocopy of just one small part of that blueprint. We call that copy RNA. The RNA then gets sent out to the factory floor, where those assembly workers, the ribosomes, read the instructions and build exactly what it says. And that final product they build is called a protein.
This simple, elegant flow, DNA to RNA to protein, is literally the fundamental operating system of life. It's not just how your cells work, it's how every living thing works. It's the universal language of biology.
All right, so we've got a blueprint and a factory. That's great. But for life to actually continue, you have to be able to copy that blueprint and build brand new factories. So how does life make more of itself?
Well, life has two main ways of doing this. First up, you've got mitosis. You can think of this as cellular copy and paste. It's for growing and repairing your body. One cell divides into two perfectly identical daughter cells, each with a complete set of DNA. But then there's meiosis. This is for sexual reproduction, and it's a bit different. It takes one cell and creates 4 unique cells, like sperm and eggs. And here's the key. Each one has only half a set of DNA.
And this is how those two processes team up to build a person. Meiosis creates the egg and sperm, each carrying half the blueprint. Then, at fertilization, they fuse together to create one single cell, a zygote, which now has a full set of DNA again. And from there, mitosis takes over. That one cell divides and divides again and again, billions of times to build an entire person. It's just an incredible journey from one single cell.
Now, because you get half your DNA from one parent and half from the other, you end up with 2 versions of many of your genes. These different versions are called alleles. And these tiny little variations in the blueprint, they're the source of all the amazing genetic diversity we see around us, from your eye color to how tall you are.
Okay, so now we're going to pull the camera way, way back. We've seen how the blueprint works inside the cell and how it gets passed on. But what are the long-term consequences of this system? What happens when these tiny variations play out over millions and millions of years?
This is the key. You have to get this one thing. Thanks to processes like meiosis, genetic variation isn't some rare accident. It is the fundamental rule of the game. Every individual is a totally unique mix of alleles, like a slightly different experiment in how to be alive.
And all of that variation is the fuel for the engine of evolution, a process called natural selection. It's actually a beautiful four-step logic puzzle. First, you have variation in a population. Second, those different traits can be passed down to offspring. Third, some of those traits just happen to give an individual a little bit of an edge in surviving or in having more kids. And finally, you just add time. Over generations, those advantageous traits naturally become more common. That's it.
And right there, that's the grand connection. Those tiny, random changes in the DNA blueprint, passed down and filtered through the relentless process of natural selection over billions of years, that is what sculpted every single species that has ever existed. From the first microbe to the biggest dinosaur, it all comes back to that.
And the timescale is it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. The first simple cells showed up 3.5 billion years ago. It took almost another 2 billion years for more complex cells like ours to evolve. Multicellular animals, they're basically newcomers. And our group, the mammals, we only really got our chance to shine after the dinosaurs checked out about 66 million years ago.
You know, when we finally sequenced the entire human genome, we found something that absolutely blew our minds. The actual genes, the parts of our DNA that code for proteins, they only make up about 1.5% of the whole thing. A huge chunk is what we call regulatory DNA. It doesn't build anything itself, it just acts like a massively complex switchboard, telling the other genes when to turn on and when to turn off. The blueprint is less of a parts list and more of an incredibly detailed instruction manual.
All of this leads to one of Charles Darwin's most profound and beautiful ideas, common descent. It means that every living thing on Earth is related. We're all cousins in one enormous, branching family tree that stretches all the way back in time to a single common ancestor.
So, there you have it. From that first simple cell, through the incredible factory running inside, to the copying and shuffling of the DNA blueprint, all filtered through the grand process of natural selection, it's all one single unbroken story. The story of life building on itself, written in the universal language of DNA.
So the code that is inside you right now connects you directly to the very first life that ever sparked on this planet, more than 3 billion years ago. That is an absolutely incredible inheritance. The only question left is, what story will the next chapter tell?